Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
Game World. With Nefarian, Agnes, the Death Knights and the new army of the Undead, Sumu was still rushing in the direction of Caesar's empire. Wrong. It shouldn't be too late. From Toronto City to Caesar's empire, the total distance was just over 1,000 kilometers, and it took 5 days for Sumu to walk halfway. For Sumu, this is equivalent to saying to the Caesar Empire, I am delaying time, you prepare as soon as possible. When you're ready, I'll break you down. This attitude is undoubtedly extremely arrogant, but at this time, anyone with a bit of status did not feel how arrogant the King of Bones was. With absolute strength, he defeated the luxurious army that participated in the Dorando sniper battle. The King of Bones has this strength to despise the Empire. 5 days is enough for a huge empire to operate and gather strength. At first, just when he sensed that the Book of Light was disconnected from himself, Caesar the Great ordered the Minister of Intelligence of the Empire, Ald, to get all the information about the Dorando sniper battle within an hour. Aled didn't disappoint, really collected all the information that should be collected within an hour. When the assassins of the Imperial Intelligence Department arrived at the location where the Dorando sniper battle took place, they saw the ice and snow world, and saw the pieces of lost bones in the center of the ice and snow world, but still fresh flesh. Millions of soldiers, once turned into undead. They also finally confirmed that the Dorando sniper battle not only failed, but failed completely. Not only was Elmer killed in an instant, the Book of Light was lost, and none of the millions of combat legions even survived. All of them were frozen in an instant by a super wide range of ice skills. Forbidden Spell, maybe even the well-known ice element Forbidden Spell Frozen 1,000 miles, can actually freeze only 100 miles in area, and the ability of the King of Bones to kill the combat legion in seconds, whether it is power or range, is far beyond the forbidden spell of Frozen 1,000 miles. The more you know about the King of Bones, the greater the fear of Caesar's empire towards him. Under this terrifying threat, the great lords and nobles who had received the orders of Emperor Caesar also compromised, obediently handing over their private soldiers. When the Caesar Empire was here, they were the great lords and great nobles. If Caesar's empire is gone, they may be able to separate one side, or they may be able to join other kingdoms. When the King of Bones strikes again, no one can resist. Gradually, the strength gathered in the capital of Caesar is getting stronger and stronger. In addition to the northern fortress to deter the northern barbarians, and the Scrack Canyon to suppress the ominous things, the heroes and professionals that the entire empire can mobilize are all mobilized to prepare for this belated decisive battle. At the same time, the Imperial Intelligence Department also sent assassins again and again to monitor the undead army that was constantly approaching the Caesar Empire. Only all assassins who appeared within 10 kilometers of the undead army, whether he was hiding in the shadows or spied from the sky, were all found and killed by Sumu. After losing more than a dozen assassins one after another, including even a legendary shadow assassin, Aled was finally honest. Stop sending assassins to spy on intelligence and make such senseless sacrifices. 5 days. The empire is basically ready. The rest is to wait. Waiting for the arrival of the King of Bones, and waiting for the start of the final battle. It is worth mentioning that, in the capital of Caesar at this time, it is not only the power of Caesar's empire that gathers. First, there are adventurers. Whether it is players or aboriginal adventurers in the game world, they are the first of group to rush to the capital of Caesar after seeing the summoning order issued by Caesar himself. On the one hand, it is for the unimaginable rewards that are opened in the imperial arsenal. On the other hand, it is absolute confidence in the strength of the Caesar Empire. Yes, even though the Dorando sniper battle has been lost, players and adventurers still believe in the strength of an old-fashioned empire that has dominated the continent for hundreds of years, without knowing that the Book of Light has been lost. They believe that there may be losses in the final decisive battle, but the victory must be Caesar's empire. Second, there are human heroes. Heroes with no power to belong to are the second group to arrive at Caesar's capital. They felt threatened. A King of Bones who made the world-famous Julius Caesar feel threatened, and even issued a summoning order. The terrifying degree can be imagined. If this decisive battle, the Caesar Empire loses, even an old-fashioned empire that is the hegemon of the continent can't stop the King of Bones. What other force in the Anduin continent can stop such a terrifying undead? It's not even a calamity of the dead, but it is already the prototype of the undead natural disaster. Yes, not the kind of undead siege recorded in the history books, but the prototype of the real undead natural disaster that swept the entire continent and dragged the whole world to death as depicted in the legendary novels. The third is the human state. The Anduin continent is very large. In addition to the overlord of the continent, the Caesar Empire, there are also a large number of other human nations. Among these countries, there are the Ruhr Principality, which is weak and has no epic heroes, as well as the Human Kingdom with a large population and a vast area. It is second only to the Caesar Empire, and is qualified to compete for hegemony. Human Kingdom. Compared with the performance of human heroes and adventurers, the performance of most human kingdoms is disappointing. In addition to some duchies and kingdoms that have supported Caesar's empire within their ability, those few most powerful human kingdoms that are qualified to compete for the hegemony position, wait and see. Not that they couldn't see the threat posed by the King of Bones. It's not that they can't imagine the horror of the real undead natural disaster sweeping the continent only. Politics is inherently dirty. The loss of the Book of Light is the top secret of the empire, and no one knows about it except for a few important officials of the empire. On the one hand, those human kingdoms believe that the strength of the Caesar Empire is more than that. Even the King of Bones is really as powerful as the intelligence described, and the Caesar Empire has enough strength to destroy it. It's just a matter of the size of the loss. On the other hand, after confirming that the Caesar Empire can destroy the King of Bones, they would prefer to see the loss of the Caesar Empire as much as possible. So, Caesar's empire is no longer as strong as it used to be. So, these powerful countries who were originally qualified to have a glimpse of the hegemony have the opportunity to overthrow the Caesar Empire, which has been strong for hundreds of years, and compete for the position of continental hegemony. It's that simple. It is for this reason that the most powerful human nations not only do not support the Caesar Empire themselves, but also prohibit their heroes and their vassal states from supporting the Caesar Empire. Finally, there are other races. It stands to reason that the undead are the natural enemies of all living beings. When the undead natural disaster represented by the King of Bones is about to begin, all races will join the war, but humans are too powerful and too prosperous. Powerful enough to drive other races to the edge of the continent, powerful enough to deprive other races of their living space. So powerful that even the legendary Dragon clan is entrenched in the Dragon Island. So, when the prototype of the undead natural disaster began to appear, these races were watching and monitoring the progress of the war through various means. If human beings are defeated, they will naturally join the war without hesitation if you can win. Under this premise, the greater the loss of the human world, the happier they are. To know, in the past history, almost every race has a history of being expelled by humans, and almost every race has suffered from attacks and captures by human slave traders. Under these circumstances, they will naturally stand by and watch. In a sense, the King of Bones avenged them. The game world is turbulent and undercurrents are surging. The real world is never peaceful at this time. As the King of Bones approached Caesar's capital little by little, the discussion on the matter on the official forum of Second World became more and more heated. Sumu first appeared and attacked the Ruhr Principality. Although it has also set off a high heat on the forum, it has attracted many players to discuss, but the number of players who were really affected in that war was less than 100,000. This time is different. In just over a year, the destructive power shown by the King of Bones is too powerful. The Dorando sniper battle was originally classified. Before the start of the war, players are not qualified to know, nor can they obtain their information, but as the final battle is about to begin, more and more forces are informed of the results of the Dorando sniper battle. In addition to the loss of the Book of Light, the result of this battle has shocked countless people. The more forces you know, the easier it will be for players to know about them. When even players know the lineup and results of the Dorando sniper battle, the horror of Sumu, the King of Bones, is no longer a secret. This time, the result of the final decisive battle has affected not only tens of thousands of players, but also all players in the Anduin continent. The final decisive battle is won, and countless players will be rewarded by the Caesar Empire, and their strength will be greatly increased. The final decisive battle fails, and the Caesar Empire is destroyed or its strength is greatly damaged, and the prototype of the undead natural disaster may develop into a real undead natural disaster. By that time, the whole continent is full of undead, and for the players on the Anduin continent, it is hell mode. Don't say it's the player's luck to have more monsters. When the number, level and rank of monsters far exceed the player, even the immortal player will be angry. Die once, an hour cooldown on death, and this is second. As the player's level gets higher and higher, the penalty for one death becomes more and more severe. When the player's strength is not as strong as the monster's strength, the final result is that the monsters are getting stronger and stronger, the players die again and again, the level is dropped again and again, and the equipment dropped again and again will only become weaker and weaker. Anduin Continent is one of the 10 servers opened in Second World. When an entire server may fall into hell mode, it will affect not only the players in this server, but all players. Almost all players' attention was focused on this decisive battle. Of course, in reality, The discussion of players will not affect the game world, but from the normal mode to the terrible consequences of hell mode, more and more players are actively participating in the war against the King of Bones, and more players have gathered in the capital of Caesar. Time flies. The final battle is imminent. When the King of Bones Sumu was about to approach the capital of Caesar, a crisp system prompt sounded throughout the Anduan continent, and all players rang in the mines. Continental mainline legendary story mission triggered. This time, the system prompt sound from the player's mind is no longer limited to a certain city, a certain region, or even a certain kingdom. Rather, the entire Anduan continent. As one of the first 10 servers to open, how many players are there on the Anduan continent? I'm afraid no one knows except the game official. Maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. When the prompt of a plot mission sounds in the minds of all players on the Anduan continent, it means that this mission may affect all the players on the Anduan continent. Such a task, that's the main quest. It is related to a whole main material world, the main line of survival. The level of the plot task has always been evaluated according to the level of the participants and the scope of the impact. For example, when Sumu attacked for the first time, he was a lord, and his opponent was also a hero. The scope of the attack was only one city, and the player received a heroic story mission. When Sumu appeared for the second time and attacked the fortress city, he was an epic rank. Nefarian was a legendary rank, and his opponent was also an epic rank. But the scope of the impact was still not very wide. The player received his epic story missions. And now, with the results of the Durando sniper battle, Sumu has proved the strength of himself and the many undead under his command. Their opponent is a huge empire, and the influence has spread to the entire continent. In this case, only the emergence of the legendary plot task. Anduan continent, all players, no matter whether he is located in the capital of Caesar, or in another human country, or if he was born with good luck and became a different race from humans, as long as it is a player, all of them have received the legendary plot quest this time. Ding! Legendary story mission is on. Task name: Glory of the Empire. Mission description: as the overlord of the mainland, Caesar's empire is not only the most powerful country in the human world, but also the first line of defense against the undead. The King of Bones is attacking and approaching the capital of Caesar. As a member of the living, you can choose to take up arms, aid Caesar's empire, and defend the glory of the empire. You can also choose to give up resistance and let death and darkness erode this world. Task requirements: go to the capital of Caesar, join the empire, and assist the Caesar empire to repel or kill Sumu, the King of Bones. Mission reward: the battlefield contribution system is activated. All players who participate in this legendary plot mission will get corresponding contribution points according to their actions. If the mission is successful, all players who participate in this mission can exchange their contribution points for the corresponding contribution equipment, props, experience points, attribute points, and professional inheritance. This mission is a legendary story mission, and the highest quality of equipment, props, and occupation inheritance is legendary quality. Same as before, the system announcement also sounded 3 times in succession only compared to before. In this mission, the player's contribution can not only be used to exchange equipment, props, experience points, and attribute points, but also can be used to exchange for the unique professional inheritance of Caesar Empire. Legendary story missions. This means that, as long as he can obtain enough battlefield contribution, a player can even exchange the entire set of occupational inheritance, from the apprenticeship legend to the rank that the Caesar Empire has. Even if the player is not like Sumu, he has 10 years of gaming experience in the previous life, but in the more than a year of their gaming career, they have long realized that the professional template is the most valuable and hardest existence for players, especially starting from the hero rank. The value of a hero class template may only be comparable to a few pieces of dark gold equipment, but the value of an epic class template is far more than 10 pieces of epic equipment. The value of a legendary job template is not something that simple money and equipment can measure. For ordinary players, epic occupation templates and legendary occupation templates are too far away. After all, they are still in the official rank and elite rank, but for some game guilds with a lot of resources and players, take advantage of this opportunity to get a epic career templates, and even legendary career templates are almost equivalent to having an epic hero and a legendary hero in the future. This is investing in the future and harvesting the future. In comparison, the rewards given by system tasks are more attractive to game guilds than those given by Emperor Caesar's release of the Imperial Arsenal. However, in addition to being shocked, many game guilds were tempted. They abandoned the original conservative strategy of seeking stability, and instead actively joined the main quest, and joined the confrontation with the King of Bones. Anyway, the Empire was defeated, and the Anduan continent entered hell mode. and it was difficult for their game guild to have any major development. But once the empire is defeated, once they use this war to exchange for epic occupation templates, or even legendary occupation templates, it means that they have a future epic hero or legendary hero. It means that in the future, they can rely on such an epic hero or legendary hero to step into the high level of the human camp, influence or even control a human kingdom. The benefits of this are far from comparable to buying a few shops or occupying a few cities. The actions of the game guild also gradually attracted some players who did not want to join it slowly. In the last period before the final battle, more and more players stepped into the teleportation formation, appeared in the capital of Caesar, and joined the war between the living and the dead. At this time, Sumu didn't know that he had started the main quest of Anduin continent, and he didn't know that because of the opening of this legendary plot quest, a large number of players appeared in Caesar's capital. Of course, even if he knew, Sumu would only rejoice. He dragged the time all the way, and took the undead army for 10 days to arrive at Caesar's capital from Durando City. Isn't it just to let Caesar's empire gather as much strength as possible? After the First World War, Caesar's empire fell. Not only can he harvest a huge amount of experience points, and a lot of free points, but he can also erase an existence that is enough to threaten him. Since then, there will be no more threats to this continent. He also has enough time to further improve his strength, manage his own forces, and create an undead camp that belongs to him, alone. But, Caesar's empire. It seems that the rise of Rogris in the previous life also started from the Caesar empire. He was on the list of natural disasters, and became a well-known natural disaster mage. It was also because he rushed all the way, destroyed a large number of cities in the Caesar empire, and escaped successfully before the Caesar empire encircled and suppressed it. The undead natural disaster caused by Rogris was one of the main lines of the Anduin continent in the previous life. Sumu invaded with the undead army, and became the main task of the Anduin continent in this life. This change, it's quite interesting. The Legion of the Undead is still advancing. This time, when he was still 100 kilometers away from the capital of Caesar, Sumu received a sound from the system, indicating that he had entered the warning range of the capital of Caesar. He ignored it. Standing on the Pharian's huge skull dragon head, Sumu advanced steadily and quickly, gradually approaching Caesar's capital. Yes, at this time, he had already gone from standing on the Pharian's back, directly over his neck, and appeared on the Pharian's skull dragon head. Zero ask for flowers. Is the reason? Is it enough to show the strength that even Nefarian is faintly afraid of? At this time, Nefarian was still nominally Sumu's partner, but apart from using the erosion talent to enslave it, this ghost dragon is not much different from the mount that has become Sumu. Sumu and Nefarian fly high in the sky. Agnes and the Death Knights gallop across the land. Behind them, the army of millions of undead who were completely transformed by professionals spread out on the wilderness, like a pale ocean, gradually spreading toward the capital of Caesar. 100 kilometers, 80 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 30 kilometers, slowly, getting closer. When he was only 10 kilometers away from Caesar's empire, Sumu stopped, constantly waving his dilapidated wings. Nefari stagnated steadily in the sky 10 kilometers away from the capital of Caesar, obediently and quietly providing Sumu with a stable platform. Below, Agnes, who arrived at the same time, raised the knight spear in her hand, and the hundreds of Death Knights behind her also stopped their charge in a neat manner, lining up neatly behind the Fear Knight farther. The undead army that has been spread out is still moving forward, and it will take some time for the slowest ones to catch up with the former figure and join the siege of Caesar's capital. Standing on the Pharian's huge skull dragon head, Sumu looked at the opposite side silently. Look at the largest city of Caesar's empire, and also the largest city in Anduin continent, Caesar's capital. Conservative estimates. Julius Caesar was home to more than 5 million inhabitants, not to mention in the game world, even in the real world. A city with 5 million people living in it can already be considered a big city. Don't forget that cities in the real world are full of high-rise buildings, and a small area can accommodate a large number of people. Although there are relatively tall buildings in Caesar's capital, most of them are bungalows or 2- or 3-story buildings. As can be imagined, this city occupies a huge area. At this time, when Sumu arrived near the capital of Caesar, with his army of undead, the first city of Anduin, which covers an extremely large area, has been shrouded in an extremely huge shield. Phantom boundary, defensive enchantment. Neither this huge shield that looks like a defensive enchantment is actually the second sacred artifact of the Caesar Empire, the elemental barrier. Once, the Caesar Empire is also just an ordinary human kingdom. It is precisely because of obtaining the holy artifact of the elemental barrier that no matter how tragic the war in the Caesar Empire is, the imperial capital, the center of the empire, will never fall. War again and again, powerful again and again. Hundreds of years have passed, and the Caesar Empire has gradually become the hegemon of the mainland from a human kingdom at the beginning, and has maintained its dominance for a full 100 years. Want to drag the Caesar Empire down from its overlord position? Can. Destroy Caesar's capital first. As long as Emperor Caesar is not destroyed, the warlikeness and self-confidence that Caesar's empire has cultivated for hundreds of years will never be defeated by other countries. Want to destroy Caesar's empire? Can. Destroy the elemental barriers first. As long as the elemental barrier is still in the Caesar empire, it will be a city that will never fall. His Majesty, they're coming. Within the imperial capital, in the palace castle, when the figures of Sumu and others appeared within the 10 kilometers line, a minister wearing a robe walked up to Caesar VII and said softly, at this time, Caesar VII has changed into a military uniform. Even if he won't directly join the war, his strength and identity do not allow him to directly join the war. Putting on this uniform represents his attitude. Following the minister's words, Caesar VII walked through the long passage and walked to the grandstand of the royal castle. The royal castle is the tallest building in the entire capital of Caesar. Standing in the stands of this castle, not only the situation of the entire Caesar's capital can be seen in front of Caesar VII, as long as there is a heart, those professionals who are above the heroic level can also see the figure of Caesar VII in the stands. Raise the flag and play the drums. Tell, soldiers, the emperor has always been with them. Appearing in the stands, Caesar VII said something calmly. Subsequently, the flag representing the royal family of the Caesar Empire was raised quickly, and 463 fluttered in the wind in the stands. The two wrestlers who have reached the rank of heroes also began to play drums, and they spread the sound of drums throughout the city with the help of the rune magic circle. Raise the flag. Drum beat. The war is about to begin. When this ardent and magnificent drum sound spread in Caesar's empire, the soldiers who had long waited for the moment also acted quickly. A high platform that is more than 10 meters higher than the city wall has already been built. The elemental barrier of the sacred artifact of the town that shelters the entire city has already been launched on this high platform. At this time, a knight with only a heroic rank appeared on the high platform, walked to the side of the elemental barrier, and covered one of his hands on the elemental fortress that looked like a small altar 30 centimeters high after it was unfolded. Cain de Cast. This is the name of this heroic knight. In such a powerful country as Caesar's empire, a heroic knight is inconspicuous. He may be the lord of a small town, the top of an army, or the leader of an adventure group, but he can never be on an equal footing with an epic hero or a legendary hero. Cain de Cast is an exception. He is the only heroic knight who can stand above the epic heroes and command many legendary heroes to fight, but no one will oppose him, because in addition to his identity as a heroic knight, he is also the strongest war commander in the Caesar Empire. Caesar VII was not directly involved in the war. Cain de Cast is the supreme commander of this war. With Cain de Cast on the podium, other heroes have already taken their place. Teams of professionals appeared on the city wall. Some of these professionals are archers, responsible for covering arrow range shooting. Some are warriors, responsible for blocking in front of the archers. Some are wandering mages, responsible for suppressing the enemy's firepower. There are many professionals, and the number of professionals appearing on the four walls is still no less than 1 million. Professionals are the most numerous but least conspicuous part of this war between the dead and the living. Above the professional, there is the hero professional. In addition to some heroic professionals in physical attack, who also appeared on the city wall, responsible for commanding the defensive army formed by each chapter, most of the professionals did not appear on the city wall, but under the high platform. Million professionals, thousands of hero pros, hundreds of epic heroes, 32 legendary heroes. This is the power gathered in the capital of Caesar. Of course, in addition to these aborigines, hundreds of thousands of players have also poured into Caesar's capital. Even if these hundreds of thousands of players are only elite, but the combination of hundreds of thousands of apprentices and full-time professionals is a force that cannot be ignored. Of these players, the weakest part is responsible for logistics, and the stronger ones are either incorporated into the battle group above the city wall, or join the battle groups one by one, and are responsible for adapting to the situation on the high platform. The elemental barrier has already been unfolded, and it is the huge mask that covers the entire city. But when Caindicus, the commander-in-chief, appeared on the high platform and covered one of his hands on the elemental barrier, the huge mask began to change. It's like, originally this mask was just a static glass shield. Now this static shield has become a dynamic shield made of flowing water. Elemental bulwark is activated. Not only did the defensive shield change from static to dynamic, when Caindicus activated the elemental barrier, with the authority he got from Caesar VII, The elements in the entire Caesar's capital seemed to be active as well. Heavy earth element, smart wind element, grumpy fire element, tranquil water element. At this moment, it seems that the various elements in the entire defensive shield are linked to the elemental barriers, like elemental elves with their own consciousness, which are brought under the control of Caindicus. In the sky, 18 legendary heroes with physical attacks are already in the lineup. They are in teams of 2 and are distributed in all directions of the high platform, as if they want to protect the high platform with their own bodies. On the high platform, 12 legendary casters are also listed. The 12 spell casters are also in 2 teams, and below each team of legendary casters, there is a spellcaster array. 6 teams of legendary spellcasters, plus their corresponding spellcaster arrays composed of epic spellcasters, hero spellcasters and mentor spellcasters, form a huge hexagram array with the high platform as the center. As for the last 2 legendary heroes responsible for guarding Caesar VII, of course, compared with other occupations, the number of spellcasters is the smallest after all. Except for those professionals who appeared on the city wall, the rest of the professionals were all located in the open space under the high platform. They are responsible for guarding these spellcasters. Except for the professionals, there are no residents in the huge Caesar's capital. As early as a few days ago, up to the millions of inhabitants were ordered by Caesar VII to evacuate and leave the city. This is also the first time, with the expansion of the elemental barriers, the Emperor of the Empire ordered the relocation of the residents of the city. Above, it was all the preparations that Caesar VII made to welcome the arrival of Sumu outside the capital of Caesar. Standing on Nefarian's huge skull dragon head, Sumu looked at Caesar's imperial capital under the protective shield from a distance. He gave a full 10 days. It is not surprising that Caesar's empire has such complete preparation. More than 30 legendary heroes, hundreds of epic heroes, thousands of hero professionals, millions of other professionals, and hundreds of thousands of players. If there is no worries, this force is estimated to be able to sweep the entire continent. Sumu can see the crazy harvest after the victory of this war, and naturally he can also see the danger of this war. He never underestimated his enemies, especially when your enemy is still a huge empire, but since it's here, of course he wants to accomplish his goals. The Death Knight stayed on the 10-kilometer line for the time being. Without Suma's next order, Agnes would not rush to fight. The army of the undead has spread from the wilderness outside the shield, gradually distributed to every city wall of the capital of Caesar. And Sumu, he stepped on the ghost dragon's head slightly, and Nefari felt at ease, and immediately waved his wings. The huge body drew a black lightning in the sky, and rushed towards the huge defensive shield. Death breath. The torrent containing the ultimate breath of death and darkness spewed out from Nefarian's open mouth, and sprayed onto the defensive shield, that seemed to be a continuous flow of water. Pity. This breath of death, which even legendary heroes dare not bear, only caused some ripples in the protective shield. Sumu frowned slightly. As the main defense of the sacred artifact of the state, the protective shield of the elemental barrier is obviously not able to blast away with a few breaths of the ghost dragon, even if the ghost dragon is already at the peak of legend same. This shield, it is difficult for Sumu to blow it away today. Is it only possible to use phase shift? Sumu said silently in his heart. The Caesar 5.5 Empire already knows enough about themselves. Since they already know that they have the magical skill of phase shift, naturally they will not have no countermeasures. The current situation is, the shield of the elemental barrier is difficult to blast away. He can only pass through this shield with phase shift as usual, and enter the enemy's home field to fight, only. In this way, it seems that he is fighting alone again. Of course, Sumu can choose to wrap Nefarian and the Death Knights with his own breath, and transfer them into the shield together, but too dangerous. Before figuring out the cards of the Caesar Empire this time, rushing to transfer Nefarian and Agnes into it is very likely to cause them to fall here completely. In this case, a slight soul fluctuation spread out, signaling Nefarian to leave the sky above Caesar's capital first, but Sumu himself stepped out and headed towards the murderous shield. Phase shift. Really? As Sumu guessed, it was the protective shield formed by the sacred artifact of the elemental barrier, which still could not stop the shuttle from the phase shift. After disappearing from Nefarian's huge skull dragon head, Suma's figure had already passed through the protective shield, and appeared above Caesar's capital within the shield. Next moment, only Sumu and the hundreds of thousands of players on the ground knew why a mere hero knight would overtake a legendary hero and become the supreme commander of this decisive battle that would destroy the empire. Sumu appears. Caindicus, who has been linked to the elemental fortress, noticed it almost instantly. As soon as his mind moved, a calm and peaceful voice sounded from the minds of a team of legendary spellcasters on the high platform. Not only this team of legendary spellcasters, but all the epic spellcasters, heroic spellcaster mentors, and spellcasters included in the corner of their corresponding hexagram array. His voice sounded at the same time. This is the first skill of the war commander, the word of the heart. In the battlefield, as a war commander, Kaindikas can control the dynamics of the entire battlefield, and can also communicate with many friendly forces at any time with the help of the word of the mind skill. At the moment when Kaindika's voice sounded, the two legendary spellcasters moved. The surging 0-1 magic fluctuations spread. A top-level wind spell and a top-level fire spell were unleashed by the two legendary spellcasters, but this is not the point. When the two legendary spellcasters released their skills, all the spellcasters in their corresponding hexagram corners also started to release their skills at the same time, and they were the same skills as those two legendary spellcasters. Subsequently, mana consumption under the command of Kaindikas, the two top-level spells of the two separate wind and fire elements and many other wind and fire spells merged together to form a huge flame wheel, moving towards the figure that just appeared. Sumu, who came, slayed the past. The power of this flaming wheel may not be comparable to the ban, but it is definitely not far behind. This is the second skill of the war commander, battlefield command. The language of the soul is just communication. The battlefield command is the spell released by the war commander to communicate with the casters of his own camp with his own magic value, and coordinate and fuse them together to exert the greatest power. Just like the Fear Knight can superimpose and merge the death auras unfolded by his death knights together. Battlefield command, commanding not only the soldiers on the battlefield, but also the skills on the battlefield. In this way, even if the two legendary mages released only top-level skills, and even if those many other spellcasters released only ordinary skills, a powerful spell that was comparable to the forbidden spell appeared. Master of War Command. As an auxiliary occupation, a war commander cannot improve a hero's rank, or even improve its strength. But when such a master war commander appeared on the battlefield, the role he has played is no less than a holy weapon. Losing the Book of Light. Caesar's empire is equivalent to losing the ability to release the forbidden spell. The caster of the legendary rank can naturally release the forbidden spell, but the long time of guidance and the huge price after the release determines that such a forbidden spell is destined to not be used on Sumu, the King of Bones. No time, no hit. The appearance of Kaindikas made up for the loss of the Book of Light, under the coordination of his battlefield commanding skills. As long as there are legendary mages, as long as there are a sufficient number of spellcasters, they can still release terrifying skills comparable to forbidden spells at an extremely fast speed, killing the enemy. Elemental barrier. Many heroes, plus the war commander. When the Book of Light was lost, these were the strengths of Caesar's courage to fight Sumu in the imperial capital. The flame giant came. Sumu was just a phase shift, and he avoided this powerful spell attack. Surrounding the gust of wind, the flaming giant wheel whizzing passed through the defensive barrier, and disappeared into the high air in the distance. This is the second reason why Julius Caesar chose the imperial capital as the decisive battlefield. Under the protection of the elemental barrier, the defensive shield can resist almost all incoming attacks. The imperial soldiers inside the defensive shield can attack the enemy outside the shield without hindrance. The flame wheel disappeared. Sumu just frowned and didn't take it to heart. No matter how powerful a spell is, it is only useful if it can hit him. If the Empire's trump card is only like this, then this decisive battle, he will win. Mind a move. Sumu is ready to release the third phase shift. Since the hero knight on the high platform is the commander of this decisive battle, then he will kill the commander first, only. Before Sumu released phase shift, Kaindika's third skill was released first. Battlefield marker. When Sumu releases phase shift and appears next to Kaindikas, the effect of this skill will be revealed. It seems like a prophet. When Sumu appeared beside Kaindikas, the holy knight with the title of King of Knights moved. He activated the two skills, Holy Shield and Charge in the Sky. When Suma's figure just emerged from the high platform, the holy knight of the legendary peak charged forward and slammed into Suma's body with the knight shield exuding holy light in his hand. A huge force came. Even Sumu was repelled by dozens of meters. You must know that no matter how strong Sumu is, it is only an epic step. Without the ability to fly, his previous series of behaviors were nothing more than a short stay in the air after the phase shift. Now being repelled by the holy knight's charge skill, Sumu can't help but start to fall. Battlefield markers naturally do not have the ability to predict. The role of this skill is to mark the enemy on the battlefield. Every marked enemy exudes a slight but obvious energy fluctuation in this way. Assassins, stalkers, hunters, etc. These enemies who can hide their whereabouts are exposed. When Sumu moved towards the high platform, the holy knight relied on the energy fluctuations emitted by Sumu after being marked to determine his location. Falling from a height, Sumu naturally has nothing to worry about. For him, It was just a matter of releasing another phase shift only. When the King of Bones was repelled by the Holy Knight, the second corner of the hexagram array began to release skills. What they released were all control skills. Control skills are Suma's absolute nemesis. When those many control skills were also fused by Kaindikas to form a control skill that was absolutely enough to trap Sumu. Sumu moved. Mana consumption, a boss skill that summoned skeletons, was released under the high platform, and Sumu immediately activated the phase shift and appeared outside the defensive shield. Nefarian rushed to catch Sumu. Standing on Nefarian's head, Sumu looked inside 467 Caesar's capital again. Boss skills, skeleton summoning. With the strength of Sumu at this time, the number of the core of skeletons summoned has reached tens of thousands. Among these tens of thousands of skeletons, there are many warrior skeletons and elite skeletons. If it is outside the city, these tens of thousands of skeleton legions may not be enough for a powerful spell. But within the city, among those many professionals, the breath of death rose up. A pale skeleton first opened the stone slabs on the ground and climbed out of the ground. When this scene happened, a large number of riots appeared in the professional array under the high platform. After all, not everyone can do it. Watching a pale skeleton crawling out of the ground and grabbing his ankle without changing his face on the high platform, Kaindikas, who saw this scene, still had no expression. Under his command, the third corner of the hexagram array began to release skills. This time those casters are unleashing purely support skills. Hundreds of thousands of skills were fused together to form a powerful auxiliary skill comparable to a forbidden spell. When this powerful auxiliary skill rose to the sky and fell down, almost every professional in Caesar's capital began to emit a soft light. Bathed in light, a player can't help but open his own property panel. He found there is an extra buff that lasts for a full hour on your own attribute panel, and the effect of this buff is double his 4D stats for a full hour. For a forbidden spell level auxiliary skill, its power naturally goes without saying, but it wasn't to say that every professional in Caesar's capital got the buff that doubled the 4-dimensional attribute within an hour. The lower the strength, the more obvious the blessing effect. The higher the strength, the weaker the blessing effect. Under the auxiliary skills of this forbidden spell level, all professionals under the mentor rank, whether they are players or aborigines, have all doubled their 4-dimensional attributes when they reached the legendary level. This auxiliary skill could only increase their 4-dimensional attributes by 10%. Even so, this skill is scary enough. A professional in the legendary rank requires a lot of time for every improvement. Just a 10% increase in 4-dimensional attributes is enough to make a legendary hero's strength skyrocket by half. The 4-dimensional attributes are improved and the strength is enhanced. Coupled with the battlefield commander of Kaindikas, the tens of thousands of skeleton legions summoned by Sumu were quickly wiped out at this time outside the defensive shield. Standing on Nefarian's head, Sumu had a headache. He found that he still underestimated this war commander, who was just a hero. When facing the Book of Light, Sumu still has time to react, because it takes a certain amount of time for the caster who holds the Book of Light to activate the skills in it. And what about this war commander? He only needs to know when to release what skills, and give guidance and command when the skills are released, and the rest is naturally done by the team of legendary spellcasters and the spellcasters in the hexagram array. Under the superposition of this 6-pointed star array, plus the skills they release are all within their own range of abilities. It has almost reached the instant effect. Attack, defense, auxiliary control, almost everything. In the face of such a war commander, who leads the entire battlefield, Sumu really feels like he has nowhere to start. Fortunately, Sumu still thought of a way to break the game. The core of this set of tactics is undoubtedly the war commander himself. As long as the war commander is killed, the power of those legendary heroes cannot be combined. Facing the attacks of Sumu, Nefarian and Agnes, those legendary heroes can only fight their own way, but with the protection of 16 legendary heroes and the assistance of the war commander, even with the magical displacement skill of phase shift, it is difficult for Sumu to kill him under the heavy protection. So, forget about the war commander. As long as the most threatening part of the hexagram array is abolished, the threat of this tactic to him will plummet. The way to break the game is still phase shift perhaps. Through the investigation of their own past, the Caesar Empire has learned that they have a displacement skill that can cross the barrier, but they absolutely do not know that this skill of theirs can not only cross the barrier, you can also cross the barrier with Nefarian, Agnes, and the Death Knights. With a solution in mind, Sumu instructed Nefarian to land slowly, and gathered with the arriving Agnes and the Death Knights at this time. Inside the defensive shield, Kaindikas on the high platform has a new move. Only defending, and not fighting back is obviously not Kaindikas' style. After the control skills were evaded and the King of Bones released the displacement skills to escape from the defensive shield, Kaindicus continued to command the casters in the hexagram array to release the skills. Array of hexagrams 6 corners. Each corner corresponds to a function. The caster who controls and assists these 2 corners has already released a skill, and the remaining 4 corners also correspond to the 4 caster skill systems of Earth Element, Wind Element, Fire Element and Water Element respectively. What Sumu didn't know was that the ability to instantly fuse many spells to elevate their power to no less than the level of forbidden spells did not originate solely from the skills of the war commander. Elemental barriers are also required. As one of the sacred artifacts of the town, the unbreakable defensive shield is only the first function of the elemental barrier. Coordinating and sorting out all the elemental energy in the elemental shield is the second function of the elemental barrier. The combination of the two gives Cain to cast the incredible power that Sumu sees. Sumu flees. Kaindicus didn't stop. When the 4th corner of the 6-pointed star array began to release skills, Kaindicus fused it together, and the 4th powerful skill comparable to the forbidden spell was released again. This time, it wasn't Sumu that Kaindicus attacked, but all the undead army outside the defensive shield. Flame. Rain of fire. When this skill was released, huge fireballs appeared in the sky outside the defensive shield, falling towards the ground with a scorching hot breath that even made the sky red. Originally, this was just the top spell in the fire spell. Meteor Fire Shower. When raised to a level comparable to the forbidden spell by Kaindicus, the fireball formed in the sky really became a meteor. The battlefield is shrouded in it. Fireballs the size of basins fell from the sky. After each fireball falls to the ground, a violent explosion will occur, and a hot flame covering a range of dozens of meters will erupt. When all the battlefields within a radius of nearly 100 kilometers are shrouded in meteor showers, when huge fireballs fall from the sky every moment, the end of the undead army is here. Even though he had long foreseen the possibility of being attacked by powerful spells or forbidden spells, when the undead besieged the city, Sumu deliberately spread the undead army and opened the distance between each undead, but meteor showers cover a huge area. When the huge fireball for 3 full rounds fell and exploded, this skill alone caused Sumu's undead army to lose as much as 1/3. Fortunately, the power of a single fireball is not too great, not enough to threaten the Death Knights otherwise. Even his precious Death Knight fell into this meteor shower. Sumu will truly feel distressed. The first round of forbidden spell bombardment has already fallen. Then came the second and third rounds. Sumu, who had already found a way out of the game, naturally didn't want to waste time. He was still standing on Nefarian's head, but the powerful ghost dragon returned to the ground and appeared before Agnes and the Death Knights. Then, a billowing demonic energy erupted from Sumu's body, covering Nefarian, Agnes, and the Death Knights in it. It seemed that they were completely covered. Under the cover of this rolling demonic aura, the Death Halo is on. Fear aura on. After the auras unfolded by hundreds of Death Knights have been superimposed and merged together, Agnes begins to charge. From a distance of several miles, they charged towards the city walls of Caesar's capital, which was shrouded in a defensive shield. Agnes began to charge. The Death Knights naturally followed. Under the guidance of Sumu, Nefarian, the ghost dragon, gave up flying high in the sky, but charged with his sturdy limbs, accompanied by Agnes and the Death Knights. A ghost dragon, plus a fear knight, plus hundreds of Death Knights. When this force began to charge, its momentum was extremely terrifying. Even the earth trembled slightly because of this charge. Inside the shield, a huge water mirror has appeared in front of Kaindicus. Not only can he see the battlefield outside the city through this water mirror, other professionals can also see the city through this water mirror outside the battlefield, so they started to wonder. That black smoke like billowing demonic energy really covered up the figures of Sumu and the others, making it impossible to tell their exact location. 1. With Forbidden Strike as a means of combat, Kaindicus does not need to determine their specific location at all. Just release skills again and again, fuse skills again and again, and bombard the dense fog with powerful skills comparable to Forbidden Curse again and again. The location can be, with the coverage of the powerful skills, the dense fog in this area is less than 1,000 meters, which is not a problem at all. Again, charge against the capital of Caesar. Even if it is bombarded with forbidden spells, it takes a dozen or even dozens of continuous bombardments to break through the protective shield of the elemental barrier. Collective charge. Is this hitting the stone with an egg? These two questions popped into the minds of all professionals who saw this scene. The King of Bones, who terrified everyone, did a futile effort. Only Cain de Cast thinks otherwise. He didn't know why the King of Bones made such a move, but instinctively, he wanted to break the thick fog and interrupt the collective charge of the King of Bones. So, when many professionals were still staring at the water mirror, wanting to see if the King of Skeletons would bring his subordinates into the defensive shield, and smash his head into blood. Kaindik is ordered again, unleash your skills. Skill fusion, accompanied by the violent fluctuations of magic power that spread far and wide. Countless light cyan wind blades that seemed to be materialized formed in the sky, converging into a huge tornado with a width of hundreds of meters. With a mountain peak that could tear apart, the power of the crack swept away toward the black mist that was charging. Thousands of wind blades. Every wind blade that forms this tornado is extremely sharp. When countless wind blades converge to form this tornado, a legendary hero with defensive expertise is involved, and will be torn apart in a very short time to pieces. Black mist, still charging. The wind blade tornado is also moving forward. Wangzhou Kaindikus believes that the King of Bones, hidden in the black mist, has definitely discovered this powerful tornado, but the black mist that was charging did not mean to slow down at all, and even turned its direction. There is no tendency to avoid tornadoes. Slowly, the distance between the two is getting closer, 2 kilometers, km, 500 meters. The black mist is getting closer and closer to the tornado, and the ominous premonition in Kaindikas's heart is getting stronger and stronger. He thought about it carefully, but couldn't figure out what was wrong. After reviewing the entire battle process, Kaindikas could only order the legendary heroes to prepare their defenses to prevent the King of Bones from just using the fog to cover up and attract their attention with a collective charge, but suddenly crossed the protective shield and attacked them finally. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, in the capital of Caesar, the black mist that obscured Sumu and others came into contact with the wind blade tornado. Wind blade roar, ripped the black mist. It seems that the King of Bones, the Ghost Dragon, the Dread Knights and the Dark Knights will be torn apart together. However, what they don't know is, just as the wind blade tornado cut into the black mist, Sumu activated the phase shift. Not only did he take Nefarian, Agnes and the Death Knights to avoid the cutting of the wind blade tornado, but he also took them through the protective shield and appeared in the capital of Caesar. Phase shift can bring people. Not only can he take people, as long as Sumu wraps the target with his own breath, as long as Sumu's magic value is enough, he can even take Nefarian, Agnes and the Death Knights all at once. It was Kaindikas's biggest mistake. Or, this is not a mistake, because even if the talent is roughly like Caesar VII, subtle and cunning like the Shadow Assassin, and the soldier is like Kaindika's, it is hard to imagine a displacement skill that is already perverted enough to pass through various shields, barriers and even enchantments at will. You can even bring people. The result is, when the wind blade tornado ripped apart the black mist released by Sumu, and when the countless wind blades that constituted the wind blade tornado rolled up, shredded, and turned the black mist into invisibility, most professionals' all eyes were attracted by the scene displayed on the water mirror. Even Kaindikas is no exception. They wondered how the King of Bones would survive this catastrophe, as to avoid or resist with unparalleled strength. It was at this time that Sumu took Nefarian, Agnes, and the Death Knights through the protective shield formed by the elemental barrier with a phase shift, and appeared in the Imperial City. And where they appear, it is the corner responsible for releasing the imprisoned skills, and the greatest threat to Sumu. The Death Halo unfolds. Overlay. Fusion. The aura of fear unfolds. Boom. At this unexpected moment, the ultimate power of death erupted without warning in this corner of the hexagram 467. Hundreds of Death Knights on the Lord rank. Their death halo was enough to instantly corrupt apprentice rank and formal rank professionals. Even elite rank professionals are hard to resist. When the death halos unfolded by these hundreds of Death Knights are superimposed and fused together by Agnes, even the elite professionals will be corroded and corrupted by the power of death within the coverage area of the halo in a very short period of time. Become undead. Coupled with the fear halo unfolded by Agnes, the resistance of professionals to the force of death has been greatly reduced. In an instant, a strong breath of death rose up, dyed one corner of this huge array of hexagrams black. Under the erosion and corruption of the strong force of death, one after another spellcaster let out a painful wailing. Their weapons are rusting, their armor is shattering, their flesh is rotting, their souls are sinking. The combination of Agnes and the Death Knights made it possible to destroy all spellcasters under the hero ranks on this corner of the hexagram array almost as soon as they appeared. It's just Agnes. Roar. Violent soul fluctuations spread wildly. After appearing in the city, Nefarian roared into the sky. The huge figure swept through the void like a huge black lightning, and the black cold current spewed out continuously, turning into pieces of darkness that contained the ultimate breath of death. The ice and snow cold current of breath and frost breath drowned the other corner of the hexagram array. Death breath. The death breath of a ghost dragon, that has stepped into the pinnacle of the legendary rank, is unbearable for a legendary hero. Not to mention the professional who has the highest epic rank in the hexagram array. In an instant, the two corners of the hexagram array were scrapped. One of them is the control system that threatens them the most. Sumu was not idle either. Almost at the same time as this leap was completed, the skeleton sword in Suma's hand had already been cut out. In the flickering cold light, a full 10 dark sword lights shot up into the sky. They penetrated the void. They tore open the shield, and over the corners of the control system, the faces of the two legendary mages, who had not yet reacted, still had a trace of anticipation and a trace of tension on their faces. Subsequently, the pitch-black sword light slashed. Before these two legendary mages could even let out their screams, they were torn apart by the sword light, and turned into a rain of blood falling from the sky. Moment very short. It's not even too late for the many professionals to turn their attention from the water mirror to the city. It's even too late for them to make a corresponding counterattack after seeing the tragic scene that follows. Just in this moment of time, Cain de Cast's near-perfect war layout was broken. The situation reversed. The main force of the battle legion in the two corners of the imperial capital, that lost the 6-pointed star array in a row, is still there. But it has been difficult to bring an effective blow to Sumu and others. Arrangement. Cain de Cast's eyes are split. He saw with his own eyes that the casters at the two corners of the hexagram array were slaughtered, and over 1,000 casters lost their lives as a result. Self-blame, remorse, and anger. This series of consecutive negative emotions made him unable to maintain his stable state of mind. Next moment, under the command of the Supreme Commander, the 6-pointed star arrays in the remaining 4 corners began to release their skills at the same time, and Cain de Cast even madly overdrawn his own magic power to command and fuse these 4 skills. The first skill, a fire skill, strikes towards Sumu. The second skill, the wind skill, slashed towards Nefarian. The third skill, the ice-based skill, attacked Agnes and the Death Knights. The fourth skill, a defensive skill, was blessed on the bodies of the many legendary heroes in the sky, causing a layer of dazzling golden light to emerge from the bodies of these dozen or so legendary heroes. Even if he almost lost his mind due to all the negative emotions that came in, Cain de Cast was a war commander valued by Caesar VI after all. A series of operations may not be amazing enough, but they are definitely the operations that are most in line with the current situation. Sumu stepped forward, dodging the incoming fire-based skills. Nefarian roared wildly, offset the incoming wind-based skills with his death breath, and rushed to the sky above Agnes and the others at a very fast speed to help them block them. Got the last ice skill. Layers of frost covered his body, and the blood bar on his head was reduced by nearly 1/10. After all, Nefarian helped Agnes and others block that ice-based skill comparable to a forbidden spell. The first round of confrontation is over. The undead camp wins. On the high platform, a blush of blood flowed down from the corner of Cain de Cast's mouth. He didn't care about the huge load on his body caused by activating and controlling the 4 skills at the same time, and stimulated the 4 skills again, commanding and integrating them. Agnes and the Death Knights have already charged up, killing the countless professionals outside their array. Nefarian also soared into the air, spewing black cold currents again and again, and continuously bombarded the casters in the hexagram array with the breath of death. Defense Department Forbidden Curse in the body. The dozen or so legendary heroes were divided into 4 columns. 1 row went towards Agnes and the Death Knights, 1 row towards Nefarian, 1 row towards Sumu, and the last row still guards around Cain de Cast. Legendary hero. Defense against curses. When the 3 legendary heroes attacked here, Sumu did not dodge or evade, but once again slashed out 10 dark slashes, with the skeleton sword in his hand. Death cut. These 3 legendary heroes have long known the terrifying power of this move, but at this time, no one escapes. They struggled to endure the 10 scattered jet black sword lights with their own bodies, and at the same time they blasted out one after another skill, drowning Suma's figure standing on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. In the explosive roar, the 3 legendary skills slammed into Suma's original location, leaving a bottomless sinkhole on the ground. At the same time, the jet black sword on, which was divided into 3 parts, also slashed at the 3 legendary heroes without a single strike. Every time the explosion sounded, a legendary hero was knocked out. Only when the dark sword light disappeared, the 3 legendary heroes were still alive. In addition to the unparalleled power contained in Suma's sword light, the dark sword light with a total damage of 20 times Suma's normal attack has not even torn apart the defenses of these 3 legendary heroes. Defense Forbidden Spell. Well-deserved reputation, but Sumu is not stupid. Since it is difficult to kill these 3 legendary heroes with the blessing of defensive forbidden spells in a short period of time, why would he waste time here? A phase shift appeared in the high sky, where it was. Before the figure was about to fall to the ground, Sumu stretched out a hand and grabbed Caindicus, who was on the high platform, as if he wanted to grab him from a distance of hundreds of meters. Fire dragon is coming, the wind is coming, frost is coming. Caindicus didn't miss this opportunity, and when Suma's body was in the air, he directed one by one powerful spell skills to smash here only. He was far from thinking. Sumu did not dodge or evade, ignoring the incoming spells one by one, and the palm stretched out towards him was suddenly held at this moment. Boom! Countless tiny bones rose into the sky. A giant skeleton hand formed in the sky. Not only the high platform is held in it, but also Caindicus, who is on the high platform, is also held in it. Boss skills. Imprisoned hands. The legendary hero can't be rescued in time, and the legendary mage's eyes are split. Even if they were angry, even if they were unwilling to roar, those legendary heroes would not be able to change the result. When the hand of imprisonment is clenched, as the supreme commander of this war, he is only a heroic war commander. Caindicus, like a ripe tomato, explode. His Majesty, we failed. It's time to leave. Deep in the imperial capital, royal castle, on the wide-spreading stand, which is located dozens of meters high in the sky, the battle flag representing Caesar VII is still flying, and the exciting drums of war have never stopped. Standing on this high platform, Caesar VII can clearly overlook the entire battlefield. They lost. Using almost all the heritage of the empire, they still lost. The elemental bulwark has been invaded. The war commander died. The legendary heroes who were the backbone of the empire are being slaughtered too. The empire is defeated. The capital of Caesar, which will never fall, is about to fall, and the myth of the Caesar Empire, which has never been defeated for hundreds of years, is about to be shattered. At this moment, staring at the battlefield in the distance, Caesar VII, the mighty emperor of the empire, seemed to have aged several decades in an instant. His figure also seemed to become a little tired. A figure quietly emerged from the side of Caesar VII. This is the Minister of Imperial Intelligence, and one of Caesar VII's most loyal cronies, the Shadow Hunter of the legendary peak, Undead. The war continues. The royal castle is far away from the battlefield, and the war will not reach here for a while. Looking at the tragic battlefield, watching the slaughter of a colleague and an imperial soldier, that is, Undead, who is known for being cold-blooded and ruthless, couldn't help but feel a sadness in his heart, but he held back. He is the Minister of the Imperial Intelligence Department, and the shadow of Caesar VII. When this war has been lost, his most important task is to leave here with His Majesty the Emperor. Undead, how long have you been with Ben Emperor? Ignoring Undead's words to persuade him to leave, Caesar VII's mood gradually stabilized, and he asked calmly, 23 years. Your Majesty. A trace of untraceable mood swings emanated from Undead's body, and he whispered, since you picked up your subordinates from the sewers 23 years ago. Your subordinates have followed you for 23 years. Yes, 23 years. His eyes were still on the battlefield, but Caesar VII's mind was already immersed in memories. No one could imagine that the desperate young man has become the shadow of a legendary peak in the past 23 years. The hunter. It is even more unexpected that the boy, who fell into desperation back then, is already one of the 5 giants of the empire at this time. Undead, subordinates are here. Thank you for your protection for the past 23 years. Caesar VII said softly, we have lost this battle, but the empire is still there. If you can help me protect Augustine, would you? His Majesty. 23 years of all kinds emerged from Undead's mind. When he heard this request from Caesar VII, he almost couldn't help but burst into tears. He is the shadow of Caesar VII. This request means that in the next time, he will become the shadow of Augustine, the only prince of Caesar's empire. To this kind of request, Ald readily accepted, because this means that in the heart of Caesar VII, he is still the most loyal. Caesar VII's trust in him is enough to make the emperor, who made him swear his allegiance for life, and entrust the safety of His Royal Highness Augustine to him for protection. But he understands another meaning of Caesar VII's request. He is the shadow of Caesar VII. When he is no longer the shadow of Caesar VII, but becomes the shadow of Prince Augustine, it means that Caesar VII will be dead soon. Caesar VII was young and strong, and would have no problem living another 50 years. As the supreme king of Caesar's empire, no one has ever been able to assassinate the emperor under the siege. It is now. Caesar VII wanted to leave, and he could leave easily, but he will not leave. Here is the capital of Caesar, the symbol of Caesar's empire. He wants to live and die here. Undead. As if he didn't see Undead, who was already kneeling on the ground, Caesar VII's calm voice continued, besides the teacher, the one I trust most is you. Although the empire is defeated, it will not be destroyed. I believe that with the teacher's teaching and your protection, Augustine will grow up in the shortest time, and become a qualified emperor. If the King of Bones can be smashed here, Augustine will replace this emperor. Let Caesar's empire regain its glory, and stand at the top of this world again. This is an entrustment, even more legacy. His Majesty. When the last words came out of Caesar VII's mouth, the cold-blooded and ruthless legendary assassin finally burst into tears. Go, meet the teacher. Get out of here with Augustine. Aled stood up and let the tears flow. If possible, he would rather continue to be the shadow of Caesar VII, accompany him to wait for the end of this war, wait for the glorious end of the empire, and leave this world together. But he can't. 23 years ago, when Caesar VII, who was still a prince, picked him up from the sewers and pulled him back from the deepest despair and darkness, allegiance, Caesar VII, had become his only mission. He will never betray Caesar VII, let alone refuse any of Caesar VII's orders, including now. Refused his company and made him the shadow of Prince Augustine. Get up, stand. After paying a solemn salute to Caesar VII, Aled's figure slowly disappeared. For a guardian who walks in the shadows, it is an honor to be able to accompany his emperor to the death in battle. Only now, Caesar VII took back this glory, and let him take on a new glory. He couldn't refuse because this is the last order of Caesar VII. With Aled's departure, Caesar VII let out a long breath. His shadow returned to normal, no longer as deep as before, as if it could swallow even light. With the teacher's guidance and the guard of Aled, he can really rest assured. In the hall of the royal fortress, teachers and many ministers were already waiting there with Augustine. As long as Ald rushes, they can leave this battlefield. The three holy artifacts of the empire. The first is the Book of Light, the main attack. The second is the elemental barrier, the main defense. The third is the space compass, which allows them to ignore the spatial fluctuations and defensive shields and leave here safely. And he is the emperor, the supreme lord of Caesar's empire. As the emperor, he wants to live and die with the imperial capital. 0. Ask for flowers. As an emperor, when even the last heritage of the empire is difficult to kill the King of Bones, he has the responsibility to stand up and kill the King of Bones in his own way, to sweep away this greatest threat for Augustine. Perhaps, someone will say, twice in a row, they sacrificed many legendary heroes and epic heroes, and sacrificed many imperial soldiers, but they failed to kill the King of Bones. Why did Caesar VII kill the King of Bones? But only a mere epic, of course, can. Because he is the emperor of the empire. The ultimate authority of the three sacred weapons of the country is in the hands of the emperor of the empire. The Book of Light has been lost, and the space compass has been transferred to Augustine. Now in the hands of Caesar VII, he still holds the final authority of the elemental barrier. Candykiz is dead. The platform has collapsed, but the elemental barriers that have been deployed are still floating in mid-air, maintaining the defensive shield that shelters the entire Caesar empire. Only losing the dominant player, this defensive shield has reverted from dynamic to static. The King of Bones is slaughtering recklessly, the legendary ghost dragon is destroying wildly, and the Death Knights are unparalleled. Under these circumstances, it is impossible to get the elemental barrier back. Even if the legendary heroes who are still alive join forces, it is difficult to close the elemental barriers that have been unfolded and bring them back, let alone Caesar VII, the emperor who only has an epic rank. The Book of Light is lost. It means that the King of Bones has the ability to seize the ownership of the holy artifact. Caesar's empire has lost the holy artifact of the Book of Light, and it is more likely that it has changed from the holy artifact to the holy artifact against the empire. The elemental fortress cannot be lost. Caesar VII would rather let this second sacred artifact disappear from the world forever, so he wants to activate his ultimate authority. As the emperor, he vowed to live and die with the imperial capital. As a father, he wants to sweep away this worst enemy for his son before he ascends the throne. This is the reason why he stayed, knowing that he would die on the platform. The roaring drums of war never ceased. The two heroic warriors had tragic faces, and they used all their strength to play the drums of war, spreading the sound of the drums representing the spirit of the empire, and the fighting spirit of the empire throughout the audience. They were the only ones who accompanied Caesar VII. Thank you for your support. Let us start with the last words of Caesar VII. The pitch of the war drums changed from the original passionate and high-pitched to tragic, from the original thunder bursts to low and continuous. The elemental barriers are still there. The defensive shield is still there. However, when the tragic, dense and deep sound of war drums spread throughout the battlefield, all those legendary heroes and epic heroes were all slightly stagnant, their faces full of sadness. This is the drumbeat of retreat. When this drum sounded, it meant that the empire was completely defeated. This drum sound is a signal to retreat. This drum sound is the emperor's order. This drum sound is a warning not to sacrifice blindly. This drum, it is a sign of the glorious end of the empire. Go! A legendary hero who suffered a blow from Nefarian's dragon tail spit out a mouthful of blood and roared wildly. His Majesty, another legendary mage, was unwilling to roar, blasting the last skill at the Death Knights, and then being torn apart by the sword retreat. This was the order of Caesar VII. The defensive shield is still there. Once, it was the barrier that sheltered the imperial capital. Now, it is still the last retreat for the soldiers. The defensive shield will not isolate the soldiers of the empire. They can leave smoothly. The defensive shield is still isolating the inside and outside. And even if the King of Bones can pass through the shield with the Ghost Dragon and the Death Knights, it will take some time after all. This period of time is the defensive shield, and it is also the last time the Emperor of the Empire has bought for them. Yes, the Empire is defeated, and the glory is gone. Even the highly revered Emperor may fall here, but the Empire is still there. His Royal Highness Augustine is still here. They can't die here needlessly. They have to escape. They have to find His Royal Highness Augustine. They have to build up their strength and offer their strength when the King of Bones strikes again, and the undead scourge swept through them. The tragic sound of war drums resounded throughout the battlefield. The legendary heroes began to retreat, and the epic heroes, the hero professional, 467, and the other professionals in greater numbers, also under the orders of one legendary hero, passed through the defensive shield and began to flee outside the shield. The undead army is running out of numbers. Under the successive bombardment of the forbidden spell, the army of nearly 1 million undead had not survived, and it was no longer enough to stop them from retreating and fleeing. But Evrion's mind is clear. Even though His Majesty the Emperor has given them time to escape, the time is too short. When that moment comes, whether they can escape smoothly and how far they can escape is still unknown. On the platform, Caesar VII smiled slightly when he saw that many heroes and soldiers understood the meaning of the drums of war and started to flee. He gave an order with a calm expression. Battlefield center. On the elemental barrier floating in the sky, a trace of cracks began to appear. A torrent of extremely terrifying elements was also released through this crack trace. A holy vessel. How strong is its material? No one can tell, but even with the top-level legendary weapons continuously bombarding the Book of Light or the elemental barrier, it is difficult to leave the slightest trace on it. How terrifying is the energy contained in a holy artifact? Nobody knows. However, the energy contained in the Book of Light is enough to support it to release 90 powerful spells and 10 forbidden spells. The protective shield deployed by the elemental barrier can withstand dozens of forbidden spells bombardment. When such a holy artifact blew itself up under the order of Caesar VII, venting all the energy contained in it, its power far surpassed the forbidden spell. Destruction begins. When a torrent of elements was released from the holy artifact of the elemental barrier and began to spread on the battlefield, even the space inside the shield was faintly shattered. Caesar VII did not know whether the displacement skill of the King of Bones could still be used in this situation. He could only hope that he couldn't, because in this extremely fragile space, even the sacred artifact, the space compass, dare not move easily. In this way, he can destroy the King of Bones. A holy artifact exploded. As long as the King of Bones cannot leave the range of the defensive shield, this terrifying undead that can grow almost infinitely will be buried here. The King of Bones is destroyed. Caesar's capital, which had stood on the continent of Anduin for hundreds of years, would also be destroyed. Of course, so did Caesar VII. There is absolutely no chance of escape. The elemental torrent has begun to spread. At the last moment of his life, Caesar VII did not watch on this platform, witnessing the destruction of the King of Bones and the destruction of the capital of Caesar with his own eyes. He returned to the inside of the castle, appeared in a room full of girlish paintings, embellished and decorated with countless pinks. In the center of this room is a pure white altar. Around this altar, pieces of the purest magic crystals form a holy light-based rune formation. Above this altar, lying there was a petite girl in a princess dress with a very delicate appearance. The rune magic circle continuously extracts the energy from the magic crystal and turns it into a soft holy light into the girl's body, while the gray-black magic pattern is crawling on the white temporary skin, exposed outside the girl's princess dress. The soft holy light poured in, constantly purifying these magic lines, while an extremely pure death breath was born out of thin air from the girl's body, generating new magic lines. Using the girl's body as the battlefield, the holy light and death confront each other. This kind of confrontation keeps the girl asleep and suffers all the time. This kind of confrontation also keeps the girl wandering in the gap between life and death. Carola, I came to see you. Soon you won't have to suffer this pain. We will leave this world together. Do not be afraid, Father. I will always be by your side outside the castle. The elemental torrent is still spreading. Inside the castle, seeing this little figure lying asleep on the altar, but his delicate and fair face revealed pain. Caesar VII could no longer bear the pain in his heart, and burst into tears. Here, there are no outsiders. Here, he doesn't have to wear the mask of the emperor all the time. Here he's just a father. The father of Imperial Princess Kerala. Caesar VI felt heart-piercing pain as he looked at Kerala's face, that was changing between tranquility and pain from time to time. Ghost notes. All this pain comes from ghost notes. More than 10 years ago, Caesar VI, who had just become an emperor, was not as calm and mature as he is now. On the second day of becoming the emperor of the empire, he took his beloved princess into the royal treasury, and chose one as a gift for his lover. As a place to collect the most precious treasures of a huge empire, the royal vault contains not only legendary equipment and legendary props, but also various lost treasures and inheritances only. After entering the royal vault, the pregnant princess was attracted by a treasure box sealed by the holy light. Hundreds of years have passed, and even Caesar VI did not know what was sealed in this treasure box. He couldn't help the princess request, and open the holy light seal outside the treasure box. Then, that notebook appeared. A notebook that seems to be the source of death. After the notebook appeared, it merged into the princess' body and disappeared. A few months later, the princess gave birth to the only princess of the empire, Kerala, but the princess herself was swallowed up with all her vitality. After giving birth to Kerala, she became a skeleton. That notebook merged with Kerala. Kerala is born dead. It is precisely because of the fusion of ghost notes and Kerala that the princess' life came to an end when Kerala was born. The deadfall. Caesar VI spent countless costs and finally established this altar of light, with the softest and purest power of holy light, constantly purifying the death breath in Kerala's body. Let her linger on the edge of life and death all the time, so as not to degenerate, sink, and become an undead. The ghost note is the culprit, and Caesar VI knew this very well. In other words, it was precisely because he did not withstand the princess's pleas and open the holy light seal of the treasure box that all the tragedies that followed. The beloved princess died and turned into a bone in front of her. Caesar VI didn't hate Kerala. 18. In the past 10 years, he has come to visit Kerala only a handful of times. Apart from letting the hermit keep the altar of light in Kerala's life, he doesn't even want to recall Kerala now. He woke up. It was never Kerala's fault. The fault has always been his incompetent father. Now, destruction is imminent. He appeared by Kerala's side, accompanying her only daughter. If there really is a world after death, if there is a legendary underworld, let him make up for what he owes to Kerala over the years in the underworld. Step forward gently. Sitting on the edge of the altar of light, she pulled up Kerala's fair and slender hand. Caesar VI looked at Kerala's face, quietly waiting for the destruction to come the other side. On the battlefield, when cracks began to appear on the elemental barrier, and when the terrifying torrent of elements began to pour out of it and spread, Suma's pupils, which were flickering with tiny blue flames, shrank suddenly. The holy artifact explodes. Even if he had never seen such a scene, Sumu could imagine how terrible it would be for a holy weapon to explode. It can be said, even if several forbidden spells erupt at the same time, their power may not be as powerful as a self-destructing holy weapon. How cruel! Sumu sighed uncontrollably. The elemental barrier blew itself up, and Emperor Caesar had no chance of surviving, and the entire city would be wiped out in that terrifying power. Not only the capital of Caesar, but even those imperial heroes and professionals who fled first. Except for legendary heroes, those who can really escape are extremely limited. And Sumu here, the blue soul fire in his pupils kept jumping, and he could feel that the space inside the protective shield was extremely fragile, as if it would shatter at any time under these circumstances. Sumu didn't know what the consequences of releasing phase shift would be. Is it a smooth departure, or is it caught in the turbulent flow of space? And the torrent of elements spreads extremely fast. This short period of time is not enough for him to wrap Nefarian, Agnes and the Death Knights, and leave with them $2. Grit your teeth. Sumu took out the Book of the Dead and directly activated the super boss skill inscribed on the last page of the Undead Hallows. Ice Age. If you don't have enough time, fight hard, now. His thinking is clear and his magic power is sufficient. He would like to see whether it is the self-exploding power of the sacred artifact, the elemental barrier, or the power of his own Ice Age. A lot of mana consumption. The ultimate coldness erupted from the Book of the Dead, controlling the chill that seemed to freeze everything by his own will. An iceberg rose from under Suma's feet, rising higher and higher. Standing on top of this iceberg, Sumu controls the surging frost, avalanches and glaciers. Welcome to the torrent of elements sweeping in. At this time, on a mountain more than 100 kilometers away from Caesar's capital, a group of people were looking in the direction of Caesar's capital. This group of people, standing in the middle, was a 17 or 18-year-old young knight with a hint of immaturity on his face. This young knight who stepped into the heroic rank before the age of 20 was the only prince of Emperor Caesar and Augustine, the successor to the throne of Caesar VII. Standing beside Augustine was a thin black old man, wearing a worn gray robe. This thin black old man was the leader of the hermits, the teacher of Caesar VII, an ascetic who had reached the pinnacle of legend. Beside the black and thin old man stood a group of shabby and silent hermits. On the other side is a group of ministers in gorgeous clothes. The rank of these ministers may not be high, but each of them is a good player in his own field. A huge empire. Not just possessing force is enough. Government talents, business talents, agricultural talents, management talents, etc., are all indispensable. These ministers, it is the middle figure who supports the Caesar empire in this field. The hermits, ministers, and the shadow of Augustine who had integrated into the shadow of Augustine, personally protecting Augustine in the Imperial Intelligence Department under his command. This is the team that Caesar VI left to Augustine. At this time, nobody pays attention to these. When the black and thin old man released a water mirror to reveal the situation in Caesar's Imperial City 01, Evrion's eyes were attracted by the pictures. They saw the rampage of the legendary ghost dragon, the King of Bones. They saw the charge of the Dread Knights and Death Knights. They saw the bloody battles of legendary heroes and imperial soldiers, and they also saw the decisiveness and determination of Caesar VII, when he detonated the elemental barrier, when all this was irreversible. The defensive shield is still there, but the elemental torrent has been released, disturbed by the huge and terrifying torrent of elements. The picture in the water mirror has gradually blurred, and cannot be seen clearly, but they can still see countless figures rushing out of the defensive shield and fleeing into the distance. They can also see that the chaotic elemental torrent is growing and expanding rapidly, sweeping everything around, destroy the surrounding everything. They know that this is destruction. Not only Caesar will be destroyed in this torrent of elements sweeping everything, even their emperors will be dead in this storm of destruction. They already knew the result, but unable to change. A tragic atmosphere spread through the crowd. The young knight held on to keep his tears from lingering, staring at the picture in the water mirror without blinking, as if he wanted to carve all this deeply into his mind only. Can you destroy the King of Bones? If an attack of this magnitude could not destroy the destruction of the capital of Caesar, the King of Bones, the sacrifices of countless heroes and soldiers, and the sacrifice of Caesar VII, they would all be in vain. The elemental torrent is still spreading. Everything is going in the direction that Caesar VII expected. But, next up, a deep icy blue suddenly appeared from the torrent of chaotic elements, appeared in the water mirror, and grew rapidly. That was the counterattack of the King of Bones. The information on the King of Bones has long been known, and everyone who appears here already knows that the King of Bones not only has the ability of death and darkness, but also has the ability of a refrigerator. A time, their hearts sank. They didn't even dare to breathe. They just widened their eyes and stared at the picture in the water mirror. Ice blue, expanding at an unimaginable speed for ordinary people. That icy blue quickly occupied most of the screen, rivaling the torrent of chaotic elements. This seems to mean that the King of Bones not only did not die in the torrent of elements of the self-destruction of the holy artifact, but has a terrible ability to fight against it slowly. The ice blue representing the King of Bones is getting stronger and stronger, but the torrent of chaotic elements seems to be swallowed up by some unknown existence at this moment, and it weakens rapidly. Just under Evrion's attention, the deep ice blue completely occupied the color inside the protective shield. Next moment, the protective shield that was strong enough to resist the continuous bombardment of the forbidden spell was shattered. The extremely spreading ice blue not only covered the entire Emperor Caesar, but even the heroes and soldiers who had just escaped not far away. Cover, murmur, tears fell. The young knight who saw this scene with his own eyes could no longer bear the sadness in his heart, and big tears fell down. Father, Carola, ice blue covers everything. This means that even the holy artifact detonated by Caesar VI failed to kill the King of Bones. On the contrary, when the ice blue covered everything, the imperial capital was destroyed, and the fleeing heroes and soldiers were slaughtered. Even His Majesty the Emperor, who stayed in the royal castle and waited for the last moment. There is absolutely no possibility of being spared. At this moment, Evrion's heart is cold. It seems that the ice blue that is more than 100 kilometers away, even their hearts are frozen together. The King of Bones is not dead. This disaster is not over yet. Having paid such a price, even His Majesty the Emperor himself has sacrificed, and he has not been able to kill the King of Bones. In this world, what else can fight against the King of Bones? Those human kingdoms that fell to the ground, those other races who watched from the sidelines, or is it far away in the deep sea, Long Island? which does not know about the mainland. His Majesty's inference is correct. The King of Bones Su-mu is the biggest enemy of the Empire. Not only the biggest enemy of the Empire, but also the biggest enemy of the entire continent and all living beings. Augustine burst into tears. The hearts of ministers and monks were cold at this time. The black and thin old man took out the crown that originally belonged to Caesar VII, and said to Augustine, who was still crying, "If the empire still fails in the end, I will let you ascend the throne in the destruction and be crowned king. Your Highness, this is the last order of His Majesty the Emperor, to be crowned king in destruction." The young knight raised his head, and looked at the black and thin old man with bloodshot and tearful eyes. "Teacher, I." The black and thin old man was the teacher of Caesar VII. Now, he is also Augustine's teacher. Gently putting the crown on the young knight's head, the black and thin old man whispered, "Your Majesty is gone, the empire has failed, but we cannot give up. Without the imperial capital, the empire will have other cities. Without your Majesty, the empire will still be there. Countless people. The countless people are still waiting for His Highness to rescue them. We are still there, and we are still implementing His Majesty's will. Countless people of the empire are also waiting for His Highness, waiting for His Highness to be enthroned as emperor, waiting for His Highness to be crowned as king, waiting for His Highness to rescue them like His Majesty when the undead natural disaster strikes. Please, your Highness, be crowned king." It is not common for such words to come from the mouth of a black and thin old man. Hearing those words, the tears in the young knight's eyes were even more unbearable, because he knew that this was his father's explanation. Only with the father's explanation, the teacher will say these words to himself at this time and this place. "Please be crowned king." When the black and thin old man personally put the crown on the young knight, and knelt down on one knee to swear allegiance, the hermits knelt down collectively, and swore allegiance. The management ministers knelt down collectively, and swore allegiance. Step out of the shadows, get down on one knee, and swear allegiance. Holding back the sadness in his heart, he stopped the tears that flowed out. 467. The young knight glanced at the capital of Caesar, which was completely covered in ice blue. He recalled what his father had taught him, and in accordance with the etiquette of the royal family of the Caesar Empire, he drew his knight's sword, and stood before his chest. "I, Augustine Caesar, am crowned king today. I swear that I will be loyal to my country. I swear that I will be loyal to my subjects. I swear that I will inherit the glory of Caesar. I swear the glory of Caesar's empire will never end." An oath came from the mouth of the young knight, witnessed by only a few dozen people. The young knight who had just lost his father ascended the throne, was crowned king, and became the new emperor of the Caesar Empire. Perhaps this was the most shabby coronation ceremony in the history of Caesar's empire. Or maybe the young knight is the most difficult emperor in the history of Caesar's empire. If the undead continue to wreak havoc, the new king of the empire can only use the dozens of people around him as the foundation, and gradually gather the power and strength of the empire to fight against the King of Bones, who was difficult to fight even when Caesar VII was alive. If the undead get away with it, what he is about to face is also the resistance and seizure of power by the countless great nobles and lords in the empire, the aggression and battle formations of the powerful human kingdoms second only to the Caesar Empire, and the loss of the glory of the empire, and the restoration of glory. Torment. All these burdens are on the body of such a little boy. The ministers didn't find it, the hermit didn't find it, even the black and thin old man and allied, who had already entered the peak of the legendary rank, didn't find it. The young knight who has just been crowned king, in his gray pupils, a tiny bit of pitch black quietly emerged. In an unknown place, a teenager quietly matures, crowned as king, enthroned as emperor. The new king of Caesar's empire left quietly after completing the coronation ceremony, away from the ruined capital of Caesar, and away from the King of Bones, who is no longer invincible. Inside Caesar's capital, Su-mu was standing on top of an iceberg that was hundreds of meters high at this time. Not only was a huge iceberg appearing under his feet, the entire Caesar Imperial City, and everything within a few dozen kilometers of Caesar Imperial City, was also completely frozen by the extreme cold. Everything that had happened outside the city of Taranto had happened again in Caesar's capital. Seeing the ice blue in front of him, Su-mu couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief. He didn't expect it. When the war came to the last moment, Caesar VII had not left. Not only did he not leave, but he resolutely detonated the holy artifact of the elemental barrier, setting off a violent torrent of elements. Even more unexpected, the torrent of elements caused by the self-destruction of a holy artifact even shredded the surrounding space. Emergency moment. Su-mu took out the Book of the Dead and released the super boss skill, Ice Age, which was engraved in it, on his way to Caesar's capital. Ice Age is indeed Su-mu's strongest skill, especially in a clear-headed state. Su-mu can completely control this super boss skill with his own will, and exert the greatest power of Ice Age. However, the torrent of elements sweeping everything was blocked, controlling the power of the Ice Age little by little. When he had completely gained the upper hand, Sumu threw out the Book of the Dead, used the pages and runed spaces of this undead holy artifact to accommodate and devour the elemental barrier's elemental torrent generated by self-destruction. Finally, Sumu won. He not only contained the elemental torrent, but also filled the Book of the Dead with energy in the vast elemental torrent. Preliminary estimates suggest that the energy stored in this Hallows relic is enough for him to release 2 or 3 more Ice Ages. Of course, the premise is that Sumu inscribes the Ice Age skill into the page again. The rest is simple. Under the control of Sumu, the extreme coldness covered the capital of Caesar, killing all existences except the undead camp in seconds. At the same time, the extreme coldness spread, and many heroes and soldiers who had just escaped from Emperor Caesar were harvested one by one, turning them into Sumus experience points and free points. When all this was done, Sumu decisively ended the Ice Age, leaving himself a little magic power. So far, the war between him and Caesar's capital is finally over. Wow. Emerging from the hill of thick snowflakes and ice, Nefarian looked at Sumu with a deeper awe the second time. This is the second time that Sumu has taken action to resolve the disaster that he cannot even survive. It is also the second time that this skeleton has shown the ability to kill himself. At this time, drilling out of the thick snowflakes and ice blocks, Nefarian did not frantically vent his life after the catastrophe like the first time, but walked cautiously on the ground covered with ice, as if he was thinking for fear of being disturbed. Sumu General. On the other hand, Agnes, after walking out of the ice and snow with the Death Knights, quietly stood under the iceberg where Sumu was standing, waiting for Sumu to wake up. Sumu at this time, already immersed in the summary of the harvest of this battle. In the Second Ice Age, all the Imperial heroes and soldiers who participated in this battle were killed in seconds. The massive experience points made Sumu's level skyrocket again, from level 63 to level 65. The deaths of more than 30 legendary heroes, hundreds of epic heroes and thousands of hero professionals have brought Sumu a huge amount of free points far beyond the last time. 843 points. This is the number of free points that Sumu got this time. 2 consecutive levels of skyrocketing and the acquisition of free points have made Sumu's current attribute panel. Name, King of Bones, Sumu. Race, Undead Race, Skeleton. Template, Epic Occupation Template, Death Monarch. Level 65. Status, Life 1.24 million. Magic Power 740,000. Attributes, Strength 81,000, Agility 59,000, Constitution 74,000, Spirit 49,000. Talent, Erosion, Unique Talent. Skills, Ice Age, Boss Skill, Death Slash, Boss Skill, Sky Smash, Boss Skill, Phase Shift Boss Skill, Summon Skeleton, Boss Skill, Imprisoned Hand, Boss Skill, Death Halo, Fear Aura, Death Mark, Undead Transformation, Level 2, Bone Recovery. Ice Skills, Omitted. Free Points, 1,420 points. The increase in level leads to a surge in 4-dimensional attributes. The explosion of 4-dimensional attributes has also led to an increase in health and magic. Sumu just glanced at these. His focus is on free points. During the Durando sniper battle, he destroyed an army of millions with Ice Age, and gained more than 500 free points. Because the strength is sufficient, it has been retained. This time, in the decisive battle in the capital of Caesar, he once again destroyed an army of millions with the Ice Age, and gained more than 800 free points. Add the two together. Let Sumu now have as many free points as 1,420 points. It can be said, this huge amount of free points is enough for him to evolve all the skills he has into boss skills. But Sumu was not in a hurry. When one's strength reaches a certain level, what needs to be improved is power. Such as Sumu, legendary heroes are no longer his opponents. With the 2 trump cards of Ice Age and Phase Shift, he may not be able to take it to heart even if the Dragon Island is coming. What about power? Transformed or summoned undead legions do not count. Agnes and the Death Knights under her command count as one. Nefarian, who has not been enslaved and became his exclusive mount, counts as half. Argus, who lives in seclusion in the city of the undead, and does not care about world affairs, should count as half. The rest no more. As a result, even if Sumu has enough strength to set off the undead natural disaster, there is not enough manpower. Like this time, more than a month has passed since Sumu took Nefarian, Agnes and the Death Knights from the city of the undead, and he destroyed only those few cities in total. If he hadn't forced the Caesar Empire to fight him twice in a row, and directly killed millions of luxurious legions, I'm afraid the experience points he harvested from destroying the city again and again would, not be enough to raise his level by 1 level. The same goes for free points. Anduin continent has only one Caesar Empire. There was only one Caesar VII in the Caesar Empire. After this battle, I am afraid that the Caesar Empire will not be able to produce enough professionals to fight him decisively. The number of legendary heroes, epic heroes, and hero pros that he relies on to earn his free points will plummet as well. Except for Caesar's empire, in the entire Anduin continent, I am afraid that no one dares to fight him again in such a decisive battle. This kind of opportunity to harvest a lot of experience points and free points at one time is gone. Even when those human countries realized the shortcoming of Suma's lack of men, it was not impossible to adopt guerrilla tactics and avoid fighting all the time. The Anduin continent is huge. There are also many human nations just relying on himself to sweep the city one city at a time. How long will it take him to harvest enough experience points to upgrade one level? How long will it take him to harvest the next batch of free points? So, developing power has become Suma's next focus, and the best way for him to develop his power is undoubtedly the undead camp he opened before. Contain the player, drive the player, let the immortal and immortal players reap the harvest on this continent instead of yourself, and you only need to sit back and enjoy the success. You can get a lot of experience points. Of course, there is a premise. That is to create or transform relevant career templates suitable for players to change careers. He has been dialing the untouched free points, which is for this purpose. In addition to experience points and free points, the rest is the harvest of equipment and undead equipment. More than 30 legendary heroes bring at least 30 pieces of legendary equipment. Those more than 100 epic heroes, and thousands of hero professionals, can also bring a large amount of equipment of the corresponding level. Unfortunately, the elemental barriers have been detonated. Otherwise, after eroding this holy artifact, Sumu will be able to obtain the second undead holy artifact, and it is still a large-scale defensive holy artifact that can release a defensive shield to shelter an entire city. Now, the elemental flood is over. As the elemental barrier of the body, even the dregs are not left. In addition to the elemental barriers, Sumu's second place is the arsenal and royal vault of the Caesar Empire. Pity. All that remains is Caesar VII. Treasures in the Imperial Arsenal and the Royal Vault may have long since been taken away. Sumu has storage space, players have inventory, and natives naturally have corresponding storage items. With the national strength of the Caesar Empire, and several large capacity storage items, it is not difficult for Zhaos to take away the treasures in the Imperial Arsenal, and the Royal Family's secret vault. Finally, it is the corpses of those Imperial heroes and soldiers. The undead army he brought with him was almost dead. The corpses of those heroes and pros, but a new addition. Finally, Sumu looked below his attribute panel. At the end of the war, he received a prompt from the system. At this time, that string of system prompts remains in the information bar on the properties panel. And the content of this system prompt: You destroyed the fortress city. You destroyed Caesar's capital. The undead natural disaster you set off directly destroyed more than 2/3 of the power of the Caesar Empire, causing the Caesar Empire to slip from its status as the hegemon of the continent. You slaughtered more than 5 million people. Your evil deeds have spread widely in the Anduin continent. You gained 50 reputation. You are on the list of natural disasters. That's right. In this undead invasion, with the influence of the Dorando sniper battle, and the decisive battle of Caesar's capital, Sumu directly gained 50 legendary points, his strength, his reputation, his wickedness. The combination of all this has finally put Sumu on the list of natural disasters. He has officially become a natural disaster level boss.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.